Hello everyone and welcome to part 3 of the Danny Phantom Urban Jungle playthrough, and it's time for World 4. Going back into the ghost zone, I do believe, and this is where the first-person shooter section is. Which is a pretty neat concept, and I mean it works well enough in this game. Changes things up a little bit, if I do say so myself. Now these sections do move a little bit slower, as you can see. And it will probably take you a minute to get the hang of these controls for these particular sections. I know it did for me anyway. You gotta look out for all them ghosts coming out of the doors there. They like to hide behind them doors. But yeah, picking up where we left off in part 2, going back into the ghost zone to hide the undergrowth core. I assume we'll be meeting up with the Walker ghost soon at the ghost prison. But I might be getting a little bit ahead of myself though. Now, I did look up the DS version of this game. It does look pretty similar to the Game Boy Advance version. From what I could tell, there wasn't too many major differences. Which is neat, but it just kind of confuzzles me a little bit. I do still wish that we could have gotten some kind of like console game, but at least there were a couple of handheld games in the franchise. It wasn't like it got nothing. And I actually happen to have both of these Game Boy Advance games complete in box. I don't have very many complete in-box Game Boy Advance titles, but I wanted to make sure if it was something that I really enjoyed and care about, that I wanted to at least, since there's only 2 games for the system, I wanted to get both of them. It took me a little while to track down a complete copy of The Ultimate Enemy for some reason, but I eventually did. I would say the probably the most valuable of the complete in-box Game Boy games I have is Sonic Battle. Which, that's a game I hope I can get to one of these days on the channel. It might be a little while if I try to keep going in a bit of a chronological order with the series. Which, that's something I would like to do more on the channel, more Sonic games. I mean, I'm a big Sonic nerd, so I would certainly like to get around to playing some more of the Blue Blurs classics. But I've got plenty of more games in the works over here on the channel. There's plenty of more gameplays that I would like to do. There's a pretty long list of stuff I've got in the works. It's another one of those ghostly worm things. Got another 25 chain. Oh, there's the ghost prison. Slowly make my way indoors. 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 Take it away, Penny. Wait, wrong Nickelodeon series. Although I do believe there was a crossover game. There was like a big Nicktoons game on the PS2 that like a bunch of different franchise characters were in, and Danny Phantom's in it. Oof, getting trampled over by all them ghosts. Oh, I need to get that core back. Uh-oh, it's Walker. Never really was a big fan of that ghost. Some of the ghost enemies in the series I like more than others. Usually at least in the first 2 seasons, it seemed like most of the enemies were well thought out and had really neat backstories, and they were used in a lot of episodes. And then season 3 kind of abandoned a lot of that and just started making up new enemies for one-off appearances, and it was like, y'all didn't really need to do that. That kind of took away from it a little bit when they made it more of a monster of the week kind of thing. the monsters and enemies in the third season just didn't have the same depth. Though some of them were pretty neat concepts, and some of them could have been fleshed out a little bit more. I feel like that's one of the biggest issues with the third season, is that everything just feels like it was rushed together, like a lot of stuff doesn't have the room to breathe and cook like it does in the first two seasons. But the third season is shorter than the first two, so maybe they were just trying to cram as much as they could into a limited season. Personally, I feel like a lot of people would probably remember the show a lot more fondly had it ended on the second season. But, I mean, it's still pretty good, though. I definitely recommend it, and I recommend the games, too. Now, the Ultimate Enemy is a lot different from this, because it's a beat-em-up. But it's still pretty fun, and it's developed by the same people, too. And I believe it uses some of the same sprite work. Uh-oh, the ghosts that I battled earlier are freed again. And man, that was an impressive chain, 154. Uh-oh. It's the pirate ship. Which means it must be battling the enemy that we've seen on the bumper screen for World 4, Youngblood. In one episode of the series, he's a pirate, and then in another episode of the series, he's like a cowboy enemy. But here he's a pirate. So we gotta take down the ship. My ship sails in the morning. I wonder what's for dinner. Any chance I get to work in a CDI quote. And you gotta help us. And you gotta. It's a letter from Bowser. I hope she made lots of spaghetti. I could sit here cracking myself up for hours quoting classic YouTube poops and CDI stuff. So that's pretty much how I spent my early days of internet browsing. I feel like I pretty much knew what YouTube poops were before I even knew what YouTube was. Though actually that's arguable. The first YouTube video I remember watching was like a SpongeBob parody of the Grandma's Cookies episode, where there's like this really bad, like, adult dub over the episode where they just say the most outrageous stuff. And I'm pretty sure that was the first YouTube video I ever watched. But then I discovered YouTube poop before I started browsing YouTube, because I was looking for angry video game nerd episodes on game trailers, and somehow I got recommended a Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog mashup or something. And that pretty much changed everything. I must have been such a weirdo to a lot of people, because in school and in class I'd be on the computers just chuckling away and laughing like a hyena over the dumbest stuff on YouTube. And then people would show me YouTube videos and I just wouldn't get it, and if I tried to show YouTube poop to them, they wouldn't get it, and simpler times. I don't even really watch YouTube poops anymore. I mean, I have like a little nostalgia playlist up on the channel of some of my favorites from the early days, but anyways, that's gonna end the stage, and that's gonna end that battle. Things are still moving along pretty smoothly in the urban jungle. Although there's not much jungle in the ghost zone right now. But there is another bonus stage. There's always time for a bonus stage. You've got to blast a certain number of ghosts before a 30-second time clock runs out. The number at the bottom of the screen, I scrolled too fast to see the rest of that, screw it. Stage is over if you fail to blast the number of required ghosts. So yeah, this is a pretty fun one. You just keep shooting ghosts, and get a certain number before the timer runs out. I'll let this go on for a moment because it is pretty addicting. The bonus stages in this game are really fun, though. And this game as a whole is pretty fun. It's a really fun package. And like I said, I think it's one of the better games I've played on the Game Boy Advance. But maybe that's just a little bit of bias, too, because I really like the cartoon, and I really like shoot-'em-ups. Which that's something I would like to play more of on the channel. That's a genre that I've always really enjoyed, but it's a genre that I've always been really bad at. So I would have to just either get good or find some easier shoot-'em-ups. But there are some that I hold pretty near and dear, like Space Megaforce on the Super Nintendo. That's a really good one. The R-Type games are fun. Gradius is fun. There's another really good one on the Sega Saturn, Radiant Silvergun, which they recently did like a remake of it, and you can get it on Switch now. That's how I've played it. Which is kind of strange that whenever I think of the Sega Saturn, the Japanese imports of the games usually are a lot cheaper than the American versions of games. But with the Radiant Silvergun never came over to the States, so that probably makes demand even higher for it. And just the fact that that was actually released at the tail end of the Saturn's Japanese lifespan, which was about 2 years longer than the North American Saturn lifespan. So they decided to prematurely kill the system, even though they really didn't need to, and I don't think it would have helped or hurt them much. But the Dreamcast was on its way at that point, and you know, I've not played much of the Dreamcast. That's like it's like Sega fans and most outsiders always talk about like the Genesis and the Dreamcast. Some will even bring up the Game Gear. But I feel like it's a really niche, smaller number of people that talk about the Sega Saturn. Which is a shame. It's a very underrated console. But the fact that it didn't really sell too well pretty much makes it a collector's console, and most of the games are rare gems. Especially depending on the region. But yeah, that's gonna do it for that bonus stage. Looks like I'm done with the Ghost Zone for now again. Where could all the escaped ghosts have gone? Uh-oh. It's Technus. Now, he's another enemy that I always liked from the cartoons. He has a really shrill voice that almost sounds like Gilbert Gottfried, but not quite. And then he's always announcing that he is Technus, kind of like the Box Ghost. I like that little bit of redundancy, I guess. I think redundancy is a word, I could be wrong. Me just throwing words out without knowing for sure if that's what I meant. Anyway, it's time for World 5, time to go ghost once again. Starting to get to the tail end of this game, there's still a couple of worlds left here. And buckle up, folks, because here on the Fromark channel, I will get through these next couple of worlds. But I really like World 5. I like the cyber techno aesthetic. I like that a lot in my video games. And I feel like it's one of the better songs in the game. But yeah, that's a like a level aesthetic trope or whatever that I would like to see used more often. I really like that Sonic Superstars did that with a couple of stages. Actually, it might have just been one stage, the one where you like turn into like little 8-bit cubes or whatever it was. I have to go back and play that sometime. A lot of people were like, yeah, that game's mid, but I'm like, I enjoyed it. I think I would have enjoyed it more had it went with the classic pixel art style. And had the final boss not been such a pain to get through. Because that final boss just seemed to go on forever, and it dragged the game down a couple of points for me, personally, but But I still enjoyed it, and I still had a fun enough time with it. At the time of recording, I'm getting ready to break into some Sonic and Shadow Generations, which I've played Sonic Generations plenty. That's a game I've had on PS3 for years, but I've never actually beaten it. I've made it to the final boss, but I gave up because that final boss sucks. And man, I don't know if it's just me, but I just couldn't, for the life of me, back in the day, I just couldn't beat the final boss. So maybe I can try again here soon. I'm more interested in the Shadow half of that game, because that's an all-new game. It's just Sonic Generations packed onto it. Ah, yes, it's Technus, the master of technology. I feel like a lot of the bosses in this game, though, are pretty easy to take down. You just gotta mind yourself. You gotta be mindful. I recently read a book about mindfulness, and I feel like it's helped me a little bit. I've been trying to do a lot more reading this year. You can never read enough books. Books are knowledge, and knowledge is power. But that stage is cleared pretty easily, and oh, would you look at that, I'm almost at the end of the part. Which sounds good to me. I will see you in the finale, folks.